We go. Billy Graham once said that a coach will impact more people in 1 year than the average person will in an entire lifetime. So I'm going to take Billy Graham's quote and add that a good coach will positively impact more people in 1 year than the average person will in a lifetime. I am your host, Coach P, and I'm excited about highlighting the unsung heroes, the good coaches who dedicate their time, their energy, and sometimes their money to pouring into our young people day after day, month after month, and year after year. Here at the Coaches Co op, we highlight coaches. So today's guest is a good coach and probably an even better person. Raised in the Ozarks in the small town of West Fork, Arkansas, she was a three-sport athlete. She holds a BA from Harding University and a MS in exercise physiology. Eventually, today's guest made her way to the BMT, that's Beaumont, Texas, for those of you who do not know, where she began her coaching career and met her BFF and husband, Todd. Great guy. I've met him. Okay. She just finished year 28 with head coaching stints in volleyball, cross country, track and field, and softball. But hoops has this young lady's heart, and she just wrapped up year 18 as a head basketball coach. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Coach Michelle Trotter. Coach Trotter, how are you today?
Great. And thanks for having me, Coach I
I'm
appreciate it.
so glad that you're here. Okay, so we're gonna dive right in. So in your bio, so you took your first teaching and coaching job in Beaumont, Texas, where you met your BFF and your husband Todd, and then you also mentioned that uh, you've had two major life events, the same life event twice, if that's the correct way to say it. So can you talk about that a little bit and the impact that has had on you as a coach?
Sure, I'd be glad to. Yeah, I mean, I've had two open heart surgeries. I found out that I had an enlarged aorta when I was in college. They discovered it when I was 20, and basically, monitored it and said, once you have this surgery, you're not going to have any kids because I'd be on a medication that would impact the baby, and then it would also, if I got taken out off of it, it would impact me. And so, obviously being 20 years old and being told that, eventually you're going to have this surgery and it's going to be a life altering, life changing event. And so, as far as the coaching aspect, coaching has been allowed me to be a parent when I couldn't physically be one myself. And so it's meant a lot to me to be able to give back. I had a lot of coaches and teachers who influenced me growing up, and so I wanted to be able to give that back, pay that forward, and then also knowing that I couldn't have any of my own. Coaching has been, that way of being that parent, having that role on a daily basis.
I tell you what, coach, it is amazing how the kids that we coach become quote unquote our kids. Like we build these relationships with them and then we love them like they're our own. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, coach. So
Yes. Yes.
28 years in coaching. So you get this news at the age of 20. Did you already know at that time that you wanted to be a coach?
I had already kind of started down that path. When I went off to Harding, I had had the opportunity when I was a senior to coach some sixth graders. A PE teacher of mine, hey, my senior year said, "Hey, how would you feel about coaching this little group?" And I really enjoyed it. And then when I went off to school, I kind of thought that was the path I wanted to go on. I worked for the intramural program, loved the sports, loved, setting up the tournaments, working the games. And so, yeah, I kind of already had in mind that that was going to be my path. And then, my background, my parents they divorced when I was in high school, and so I had a lot of mentors from the education realm, and I knew I wanted to pay that forward. I wanted to be that adult for kids like me.
Okay. Okay. So what sport was that you were coaching the sixth graders?
The sixth grade it was
Okay.
basketball,
Okay.
and yeah, go ahead.
So when you actually started in the coaching profession, was basketball your first coach? I mean, your first sport?
Wasn't my first sport. It's what I wanted to be my first sport, but actually, my first job in Beaumont was at a private school. And a lot, if you know about private schools, you don't make very much, but you work a whole lot. And I was the head volleyball, basketball, softball coach. I taught PE 6th through 8th grade, and I taught 6th through 8th grade social studies, which were three different preps. So I didn't see the light of
Oh,
day till
wow.
softball was over in
So
April.
you were teaching sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade social studies, coaching
Yes,
volleyball, softball,
yes,
and basketball. They owe you
yes.
money. If that school is still open, listen, if you're still open, what was the school?
It was called Beaumont Christian.
Beaumont Christian. Listen, like the IRS refund checks, y'all owe Coach Trotter some money. Oh my goodness, Coach Trotter, that's a lot. That is a lot.
Don't ask me how much money I made. You'll go, what in
Oh
the
my goodness.
world?
Listen, whatever they paid you, they still owe you money. Whatever that amount was, they still owe you some money. Okay, so you start in Beaumont, right? That's where you get your coaching start. Um, from there, where?
From there, that's where I met Todd, which you already
Mhm.
mentioned. You know, as I mentioned, it's a private school, didn't pay very well. A significant portion of my pay was not significant, but a big chunk of it was the coaching. And they hired a new principal during the summer while I had gone home to Arkansas to spend time with my family. And when I got back, they had hired a new principal, and she pulled me in and said, what's your career goal? And I said, well, I want to be a head basketball coach. I'd like to get back into public school eventually. And she said, well, how do you feel about elementary PE? So you kind of know from that conversation that it's heading the wrong
Yeah.
direction. And so they had given all my coaching to her husband, and so they were going to move me to elementary PE. So that's in July. It actually turns out to be the day that Todd was going to ask me to marry him that I found out about that. So he went ahead and asked me that day. He figured that couldn't be any worse of a day. It'd only make it better. So,
That's love.
um, anyway, yeah. So and then I found a job, just trying to find a job. I went and interviewed in Malakoff. I was told it was a head basketball job, so I drove to Malakoff, which is up close to Tyler, East
Okay.
Texas. And when I got there, the principal said, "Hey, we just hired just hired a girls basketball coach, but I have a head volleyball job. We're restarting volleyball after 5 years, so I needed a job, so I took it." And so I spent 1 year there at Malakoff, coach being a head volleyball coach. But I did tell him, I said, well, I'll take it, but I want to be able to volunteer and help with basketball. And so that's what I did. I helped on a voluntary basis, and that ended up being my first taste of state basketball in Texas. That year, those girls made it to state at the 3A
Okay.
level.
Okay. Okay. So Ma- Malakoff. Okay,
Yes.
I'll be on Google Maps later because I am not a native Texan and I have never heard of Malakoff, Texas. All right, so how many years were you there?
Just one. We got married December of that year, and he decided he wanted to go back to school. He had 2 degrees, one in Bible and one in biblical Greek, and he wanted to teach Bible at the college level. So we got married in December, and we took off for Memphis, Tennessee, and we lived there for three
Okay,
years.
okay, okay. So we're taking a little tour. Did you coach in Memphis?
Yeah, got a coaching carousel. Let me
Okay.
just tell you. So got to Memphis, and I got a job as a head track coach there. Spent 3 years there. Had a mile relay team that made it to state, and I had a 300 hurdler that made it to state in my 3 years that I was there. Interesting enough, the school I was at there, Oak Haven, did not have a track. So the only thing they had was a football field with a field around it. They had what I called the heel,
Okay.
wasn't much of a heel. I borrowed a couple of hurdles. Every once in a while, we would get a nice yellow dog and be able to drive to a track to get some practice. But for the most part, our track team was successful practicing in a little side field.
It was the coaching. Oh, that's crazy. Well, but you know what? It's not that crazy because where I'm uh where I'm from, the team that would win state most years on the boys' side when I was in high school, from from my understanding, and I'm talking about New Iberia, Louisiana. Um, from my understanding, they didn't have a track. They didn't have a track either. So it's, I mean, hey, if you can go, you can go. And then if you got a good coach like Michelle Trotter, you know, getting you to the state track meet with two hurdles, it's got to be the coaching. Okay, so Beaumont, the town in East Texas, Memphis, and then
Then the
the
valley,
Valley.
Rio Grande Valley, down to Brownsville, Texas. Todd got, while he was working on his MDiv, he decided that he wanted to preach after he swore to me he wouldn't preach, but he was good. He was pretty good at it, and so that was something he wanted to do. So we moved to Brownsville, Texas. Um, I worked another year at a private school, St. Joe. I actually coached boys at St. Joe. I coached the freshman boys basketball
What
team.
was that like?
Um,
What was that like?
you know what? I loved it. At first, it was, boys. They were like, "You're a girl. What can you teach
Right,
us?"
right.
But we ended up having a really good year. I don't know how many wins and losses we had, but had a good year. And when it was over with, the boys were like, "Can you coach us next year on JV? Can you come? Can you move up with us?" So it was fun. And actually, because it was a private school, Todd got to help me. He got to be involved a little bit. And then I left there and went to Los Fresnos for 2 years
Okay, hold
and was
on.
an
Let me
assistant
back you
basketball.
up just a half a
Yes,
step. Okay, at St. Joe's,
yes, sir.
you coach the freshman boys, right? And they are so endeared to
Yes, sir.
you that they ask you to coach them again on JV. What year is this?
This was 2000.
Okay, so in the year 2000,
2000.
right? So because we have women, right, coaching on the men's side now. It's not a lot. They're few and far in between. But Coach Trotter was doing this back in 2000, y'all. If you can coach, you can coach. If you can coach, you can coach. And the kids recognize it. The kids were drawn to you. Coach, I love that. Keep going. So we're now in Los Fresnos.
Go to Los Fresnos again to get back into public school. I got my Texas certification for public schools, and then I worked for Kim Edquist at Los Fresnos and for Becky Woods at volleyball. Becky Woods was the head volleyball coach. Kim Edquist was the head basketball, and so I spent 2 years with them. Loved it, loved every minute of it. Loved the valley. We had a good stint there, but unfortunately, Todd and I put, or fortunately, however you want to put it, we put two careers together that they usually need to have a permanent U-Haul, next to your home.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you're only coaching till you make the wrong parent upset or community member, and then preaching is kind of that same way.
Yeah.
You're only there till you preach a moving sermon, as we like to call it. So that took us from there. Came to Houston,
Okay. And so now y'all are in
and
the big city of H Town, fourth largest city in the country. And where do the Trotters land?
well, uh, Mr. Trotter landed in Sci Fair area. I had already signed my contract And I'm kind of that loyal person to the
Okay.
fault. And Kim had lost her mom during the summer, and I had already made a commitment to be there. So Todd went on to Memphis for the 2002-2003 school year, and I finished out my contract at Los
Okay.
Fresnos. Um, and then I go and join him in 2003, 2005. I ended up at Fort Bend Bush with Stephanie Williams, um, and coached. I was assistant basketball and assistant softball and
Okay.
volleyball at Bush.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any moves?
And Stephanie,
No,
go ahead.
you got it. You got it. You got the mic.
I was just gonna say, Steph kind of she found out about me from a teacher that I had worked with at Los Fresnos that had started working at Bush, and she let Stephanie know that I was looking, and I was wanting to get back to I wanted to be a head basketball coach, so I had moved into some assistant roles while Todd was getting his degree and doing all that, so I was really hunting
Yeah.
hard another head job. And Stephanie came to TGCA and she basically stalked me the whole 3 days at TGCA, um, trying to say, come on, come work with me,
Yeah.
get back and get into Fort Bend and then you can find that head job again. And so she pursued and persisted, and it ended up being, it's been a lifetime friendship. She and I still communicate. Her daughter has been to every one of my basketball camps growing up, and so there's stops in coaching that may not necessarily have been your plan, but they were God's plan. And I truly believe the Bush stop was God's plan because it created a friendship that has lasted me a lifetime and been a mentor for me.
That's good. That's good. And that's a perfect segue because um I did want to ask you to, to talk about your faith a little bit, right? And then I was actually another one of my questions on my checklist is, do you have a mentor or did you have a mentor? But first, what role does your faith play or has your faith played in your coaching journey? Because you said, every stop is not necessarily our stop, but God always has a purpose. God always has a plan. So talk about your faith. Talk about the role that your faith has played.
Uh, you know, yes, sir. I mean, my faith has been the foundation of my life. We everybody has a story. I have a story growing up, and my story. I know that my story is not any. It's not as tough as a lot of kids growing up, or it's been tougher than some kids. So my parents, like I already mentioned, divorced. There was tension in our home growing up. If you've ever seen the movie, I can only imagine. Watching that movie was kind of tough for me because it kind of touched on a little bit of the stuff that I dealt with growing up. But my parents went to church every Sunday. But what people didn't know what was going on behind the scenes at home. And so my grandparents and their faith really laid a foundation for me. And, life is not easy. We can all sit and talk about the things that we've dealt with. And I don't know where my life would be without faith. And so being able to share that, you know, privately or publicly has been important in my journey of coaching. Uh, you know, I almost got out. I went to Wharton, which we stopped going down my career stops because there were a bunch of them. But
We'll come
when
back
I
to
left Wharton in okay, when I left Wharton in 2000 and I think it was 2013, I basically I resigned. I went to the state tournament. And I came home and I told Todd, I said, I'm going to resign. He's like, and teachers and coaches don't do that, not without usually a plan or a job lined out. And I just felt like God, while I was there, was talking to me and telling me, hey, there's time for you to make a change. And so basically my prayer was, Lord, if I'm supposed to still be coaching, you're going to kind of have to show me. I had already done another master's at Lamar in administration, and so basically I went to the interview in Crosby. When I got there, Jeff Reardon was the athletic director. One of the first things that he talked about was the coaches' outreach Bible study that they had, and he talked about Code Red, which was God Family Team. And it was kind of like God was, smacking me up the cheek and saying, "Okay, here's your answer. You're not done coaching. This is where you're supposed to be."
That's good. Let me
So
ask you this. What life circumstance is happening that causes you to consider getting out of coaching?
uh, I was blessed at Crosby with the Code Red God Family Team, and that I was pretty much able to, show or share my faith without concern of, being, critical, somebody being
Mhm.
critical or unwanted. And so when it comes to what makes me consider get out of coaching,
Yeah.
is if I can't be me.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean pushing my faith on someone, but it also doesn't mean it means not being restricted from being who I am and being true to myself.
Okay.
So if there was anything that might push me out of it, it would be taking my purpose away. Making me kind of have to live in a box of with my
Okay. So
purpose.
when you decided to resign, did you feel like you weren't allowed to just be genuine Coach Trotter? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. That was yeah.
Okay. Okay. And that's what I was wondering because I know as coaches, we man, what we do gives us life. You know, it's our purpose, it's our calling. And when we're in a situation that forces us to question that calling, I know it can be kind of tough. I know it can be kind of tough. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you get out of a tough
One
situation.
one
Go
more
ahead.
interesting thing one more interesting thing on that was when I came home from that state tournament, I actually was sitting next to another employee from the district, and she and I were visiting, and she said, "It sounds like you're leaving." And that was kind of that trigger of, you know what? I think this is me being guided to make that decision. So it was just kind of interesting how it all played out.
That is. That is. So you end up in Crosby, and it sounds like it's an answered prayer. The Crosby job. Okay.
Yes.
So you spent 9 years in Crosby, and one or two trips to the state tournament.
One trip to state, we made it to the regional final
Okay.
twice, but just one trip to
Okay.
state.
Okay. So lots of success at Crosby. Um, what was it like? What were your 9 years? If you could sum up your 9 years in 10 words or less, how would you sum it up?
Um, Night and day.
Okay. Okay.
That's two words.
Okay.
Um, the first 5 years were extremely different than the last four, um, and that was because of circumstances out of my control and out of the coaches' staff control, just related to the district.
Yeah.
Um,
So I remember,
but
I'm gonna tell you what I remember, and this is before you and I ever met. Um, so I'm gonna if I get this right, during the first 5 years, is that when you made it to state? That was
yes,
year 5, right?
it was
It was
year
year 3.
three that we made
Year
it to
3.
state, and year five we made it to the second time to the regional
Okay.
finals.
So cuz I remember reading about you in the paper, right? Um and then
Mhm.
I remember um did you have a second surgery during at Crosby?
Yes,
Okay, so I think I remember
yes.
reading about that, but then I also remember reading about, like, budget cuts and then Crosby deciding to let you go, and I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy. This is a highly successful coach." And what's going on in Crosby? So, I'm guessing that's the night part of it. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
The mic is
definitely.
yours.
All right. Yeah. The first 5 years, first 3 years, I had a group of sophomores when I got there, and they're the ones that kind of helped build the program to go to state when they were seniors. And the second surgery, actually, same surgery that when I had the valve replaced at 22, it was a. They said it would be, it'd last about 20 years. I got 22 out of it. The summer of 2015, I went and they said, this one's not working. We need to fix it. And interestingly enough, you know, when you have about 7 doctors and nurses walk in the room, that, you know, there's something going on. And so Todd is sitting there with me and they said, you know, we need to fix it. And I looked at him, I said, can you do it right now? Can we get it done quickly? And of course, they look at Todd like I'm crazy because nobody asked to have heart surgery
Yeah, yeah.
quickly. And he said, well, she thinks she has a team that can make it to state. And so there's just a lot of neat little pieces to that story. And, for it actually to happen, for those group of kids to be able to lead that team, take them to state, the month or so that I was out, couldn't be on the court with them, couldn't, for 6 weeks I wasn't with them at all. They were coming in, going to the weight room, getting in extra shots. And so I think it's just a testament to what we built from, the first year or two that I was there, and to the buy-in that kids had in what we were trying to do as a team. And then the neat story of the surgery and we actually getting there, it's just a blessing.
That is a neat story that needs to be told, right? All the details need to be told. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say this, probably in a book, because you can, put all those details down in a book, and the entire coaching community will definitely support you in buying that book. So we just kind of, we're putting that out in the atmosphere that one day, we don't know when, but one day Coach Trotter is going to bless us with that book. Right, Coach Trotter?
Yes, sir. That's the
Okay.
plan. Sounds like a
Okay.
great plan.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So coach, let's transition a little bit. Let's so you just wrapped up your first year at George Ranch High School, right? Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
let's talk a little bit of basketball. Let's talk a little bit of basketball. We talked about your journey. Let's just kind of transition, and let's talk a little bit about basketball. So, um, are you a rah rah coach? Like, do you give pregame speeches, postgame talks? Is that something you do?
I'm more of the pregame. I do try to give rah rah
Okay.
speeches. I wish I had been the reader that I am now when I was growing up, because I missed out on an opportunity to read a lot of good books. But I usually try to think of something that's patterned to our kids and what we're dealing with in the season. And so pregame, I like to pull out a quote, or if we've been doing a lesson over the last few weeks over a particular topic, I might bring that topic up. I try to put things in there that are motivational before the game. Not so much X's and O's. Hopefully, we're prepared for that part of it
Mm-hmm.
already.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm more of a pregame talker than the postgame. Postgame, if they've won, they're excited, they're ready to go see their families. If you lost, there's not a whole lot that they're going to catch between the ears. You need to let them process it for about 24 hours and then try to go back and fix those things that may need to be fixed.
Okay. Okay. So you're a reader more so now than you were when you younger. So for the coaches who will be watching and listening, do you have any recommended reads for us? Something that'll help us.
Yes, definitely. John Gordon, any of his books are
Agreed.
beneficial, but the Energy Bus, the Carpenter, Training Day, those are three of his that I really like. And then also the Hard Hat. The year that we went to state, uh, we did a book study over the Hard Hat with the kids, and I think a lot of what we did on the court, but I think even more so what we were doing off the court with their mindsets and their character helped to build the success we had there. Jay Billis, Toughness, that's another one I would
Okay.
recommend. And then I'm also I love Max Lucado. Mark Batterson is another Christian author. He has a book called Chase the Lion. And I think that one is good for coaches' personal growth in that, we have things that kind of hold us back. It's kind of like talking to you right now about what I've done in my career and you listening to you kind of sing those praises. It's uncomfortable for me because that's not who I am. But book by Mark Batterson, it's you have those dreams, quit being afraid of
Hmm.
them,
Hmm.
quit believing that you can't be successful in that. You can. Go chase what you want, go fight for what you want, and the success will come.
And that book is called Chase the Lion.
Chase the
Chase the
lion.
Lion. Okay.
Yeah.
And you know what, Coach, you did? You sent me an email earlier and you're like, Coach, I'm uncomfortable talking about myself. But I just want to take this 10 seconds to just encourage you, because I know how tough our job is. I know our profession is tough, right? And as you're telling your story and just kind of giving us some details about the path that you've taken, I just want to say that, Coach, you are operating in your gift and in your calling. So I think it's important to recognize when people are doing that and they're doing a good job of it, right? Even though, because sometimes we can be there and it doesn't feel like we're doing our best, right? Because for whatever reason.
Right.
So I just definitely want to, just take that 10 seconds to point out that, Coach, I think you're doing a great job. I think you're doing a great job. And personally, I look up to you. Just want to let you know.
Well, thanks, bud.
All
I
right.
appreciate it.
So, all right, let's keep talking a little bit of basketball before we transition again. So, uh coaching philosophy. Are you like a system coach, player development coach, zone coach, man coach? And you can take that. It's kind of a broad question, but maybe I can ask it this way. Here's probably the best way for me to ask that question. How did you develop your coaching philosophy?
Um, well, when I saw you were going to ask about system or player, I put yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think there's a little bit of both that goes into it. As far as where I'm at now, I think just like with anything, um, if you're not growing, then you're behind, and the game has changed. When I played, flex was the big
Hmm.
thing. When I first started coaching, flex was kind of what I ran, what I
Yeah.
knew. And so I've developed over the years, and I changed a little bit. Obviously, when I interviewed at Los Fresnos, uh, I was interviewing with Kim, and she said, "Well, do you like what kind of basketball do you like?" And I said, "Well, I'll tell you, I don't like run and gun." So, and then as soon as I got that out of my mouth, I looked at her and I said, "What do you like?" And she said,
Running gun.
"Run and gun."
Yeah.
So, you have to learn to sometimes you need to listen more than you talk. So that was a lesson there. But as far as my philosophy that I have now, I've taken bits and pieces of what other people do and try to formulate what I think is a system that does work for our kids, but I think can work irregardless of whether you have great athletes or you just have great kids. I've like I mentioned when I went to Malakoff, we went to state, and that was the first time I watched Joe Lumbar
Hmm.
coach. You're going to ask me about you know coaching giants. He would
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
one, and I just watched him. To me, he's a system guy, but he develops his players in that he doesn't have the most athletic
Right.
kids. He just develops their skill that they need within the system that he wants to run, and he gets buy-in. Um, as far as man and zone, I'm a big man person, to a fault maybe sometimes. To me, all of the principles of zone, you have to understand man
Agree.
defense. And I think that there are times, especially, knowing from the playoffs, there's times when you're going to get in a situation where you can't rely on a zone per se. And for example, the year that we went to state, we were playing Rudder. There's a lot of interesting, which I'll put in the book. I need to put in the book, but I kind of had planned out who I thought we were going to play, enough that at Christmas we went to the Aggie Land tournament, and my varsity assistant coach and I got up at 5 a.m. and drove to Aggie Land to watch Rudder,
Okay.
and their game was at 8 o'clock. And so I knew we weren't going to be able to play zone against them. They had some really good shooters. Had I waited till the regional tournament to really focus on, the type of defense I wanted, man wise, we'd have been in trouble. And so I just think there's situations where there is a time for a zone, but I just feel like everything should be man based. Um, so that's where I stand on
So
that.
let me jump in right here. I don't want to say this. So it takes what it takes. And that comment is based on what you just said about, hey, I know my team. Now you didn't say all of this, but this is what I heard. I know my team. I know what my team is capable of. So over Christmas break, I'm gonna wake up at 5 a.m. and I'm gonna go and scout this team that I think I might see in March. I'm gonna go scout them at the end of December because I think I may see this team, in late February or March. And that is, if I can say this, I don't know who may watch or listen to this, maybe, a younger coach or something. That's what it takes. That's what it takes if you want to be successful, in my opinion, that nobody asked for. Okay, go ahead, coach.
Um, and so we got to the regional tournament. We end up Barbers Hill loses to Rudder. It ends up being Rudder that we play, and we built. It's. I will say this to coaches: if you when you get in the playoffs, the deeper you go, if you get blessed enough to go to state, try to enjoy every moment of it. I think, when I walked off the court after we lost to Canyon, which is another interesting piece of the story, uh, it had been like a whirlwind. And so I would suggest, enjoy every minute of it. It's going to be stressful. You have that desire to win, to compete. You want to do what's best for your kids, but try your best to enjoy every minute of it. But we played Rudder. We built an 18-point lead in the first quarter. It was 18-0 at one
Wow.
point. And I was like, oh my gosh. Um, and then, of course, I knew that they were missing shots and we were doing a great job of boxing out. I knew they weren't going to keep missing. And they gradually clawed their way back in. And by the start of the fourth quarter, they're within one. My assistant says, hey, do you want to go to the zone? In my heart and mind, I'm going, no, I don't. But, you know, all right, let's try it. And sure enough, well, we were only up by 8. By the time and then we went to the zone, they hit 2 threes real quickly, and we're only up by 2. Call a timeout, and I go back to the man, and I just tell the kids, this is what got us here. It's what's going to win it. We got to get back to what we were doing, and we ended up pulling it out and winning by 10. But to me, man and zone, there's a time and place for zone. Uh, it's situation depending on what's going on, but I think everything kind of builds around the man, understanding man
I
defense.
agree. I agree. I actually, our team played more zone this year than every other year combined, and it's just because I felt like we were gonna really struggle guarding people. And I think the I'm a man to man coach. Let me say that I'm a man coach, just like you said, probably to a fault. But this year we had to play zone because we just weren't very good in man. I hate to say that, but I agree with you there. I definitely agree with you there. Okay, coach, let me ask you this, and then we're gonna get into crunch time right after this. Um, oh man, I got two questions I want to ask, but let me ask this one first. Um, do you remember the first time that you were out coached?
I I tried to think about that question because I
Hmm.
saw it was on there. I think I think there is situations every year where you feel like, you know what, I was out
Yeah.
coached on that. Um, as far as a particular game or particular situation, um, there's several of them that come to mind. The second time that we went to the regional uh, final, I feel like the final game there, I was outcoached. Not in my defense or anything. We actually thought we were going to run into Barbers
Hmm.
Hill, and the kids were expecting that, and it was a big rival for us. That was in our district. Um, there was some behind the scenes stuff with it, and actually Barbers Hill had the lead, and we really thought, okay, we're going to get a district, you know, rivalry matchup for the
Yeah.
regional final, and they ended up losing in overtime to Temple. And so in that situation, I, that very next day, I felt like I was kind of outcoached by the Temple coach, and I don't know if that was a letdown from all of us in that we thought it was going to be a certain thing,
Hmm.
if it was a situation, but she made some adjustments and things that we were doing, and I don't didn't feel like I made the right adjustments for our kids in that
Okay.
game.
Okay. So it happens. I think it happens to all of us. I personally remember the first time it happened to me. The first time, first implies that there's an order, which means it's happened more than once, right? And that's why we study, and do the things that we do so that we can be excellent in our profession. Okay, coach. Let's play a game. Are you ready? All right, we're gonna play a
Yes, sir.
little rapid fire, okay? And then we're gonna get into crunch time right after we play this game. Coach, don't think too long or too hard about any of these questions. First thing that comes to mind is what I want you to say. Okay? Are you ready?
Okay.
All right,
Yes,
here we
sir.
go. First question. What world leaderboard would you be ranked number one on?
Oh, uh, youngest repeating heart
Okay.
surgery person. I've at 44, I'd had been the youngest repeat
Okay.
customer.
Okay. What would you trade a kidney for?
Um, Man, these are tough. Uh, a kid that needed
Okay.
one.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna give you an easier one. If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
Um, Speed,
Okay.
be quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank. I discovered blank before it was cool. Are
You
these
are stumping
oh
me
man.
good.
You know what? I just thought of something. I'm gonna get a shot clock on these questions. I'm gonna put it right here in the
Oh,
corner. So we just
there you
worked on
go.
something.
And when time is up, you're
Yeah.
just out of luck,
But
huh?
all right.
All right,
Okay,
next
last
one.
one right here. What is the worst place Todd could take you on a date? And I added Todd's name in there.
A museum.
Okay. No museums, coach?
Well, no
Okay.
science museums.
Okay. I
Let's
was
put it
like,
that way.
I'm a
Yeah.
social studies teacher. You used to teach social studies. We love
Yeah.
museums.
Yeah.
Okay, coach. Thank you for
Yeah.
playing that little game with me. All right. So we're down in the crunch time, okay? We're down in the crunch time. So here we go, coach. I got a few more questions for you. All right. We got four
All
quarters
right.
right here. First quarter question. If you could be anything other than a coach, what would you be?
I think I honestly would be a cowboy. I have a ranch, raise cattle, horses. I told Todd when we first got married that I'd like to have a enough land that it'd take a good horse to get across take it 3 days
Oh
to get
wow.
across, because I love being out in
Oh,
wildlife and
that's
in
awesome,
nature.
coach. Okay. Second quarter question. Easiest thing about coaching that no one really knows.
I'd say the easiest thing is you go to work not feeling like you have a job. You go to work doing something that you enjoy, a calling. And so there's not that, some jobs you have that dread, oh, I got to get up and go to work. And I think one of the things that people don't realize that um, we really enjoy doing what
Okay.
we do.
All right. Third quarter question. What's the toughest thing about the job that no one knows?
You really can't leave it at home, and you are always scrutinized. It doesn't matter, um, you know, somebody's going to be upset with a decision that you made. Um, Interestingly enough, this year I had, a parent upset because we're not winning, like we should be winning more. And then within a 24-hour time frame, I had a parent calling me saying it shouldn't be about winning, it should be about the seniors getting to play.
Yeah,
So no matter what you do, you're always going to be under
always.
scrutiny.
Okay. Fourth quarter question. Who has the tougher job, coaches or officials?
I looked at this and I'm going to say the coaches. Officials have an area that they're responsible for, and kind of a framework that they've got to keep
An
teams
area.
within. Coaches, yeah, they have an area that they're responsible for, and don't ask them about
Oh,
another
man.
area because they'll say
That's not
that's
my
not
area,
my spot.
coach. It's not my call.
But no, that's my favorite answer. But anyway, I would say coaching because you are in game adjustments, personalities, especially girls. I don't know about. I mean, I did do boys that one year, but it was freshman boys. You could have a kid that 1 minute she seems fine, and another minute she's another personality. So I'd say
Okay.
coaching is tough.
Okay. So I've had two basketball coaches on so far, and it's 1-to-1. One said officials, and you said coaches. Okay. All right. Here we go. Three in the key, coach. Three in the key. Give
Okay,
us three things that all coaches need. What do you have for us?
a personal identity other than just as a coach. You need to know who you are because eventually, at some point in time, this career will end and you will move on into the next phase of life. And so the other, and that is also understanding that where you are today may not be where you are tomorrow, and your identity can't be just in coaching and where you're
Okay.
at that moment. Second thing I'd say every coach needs is end of game situations. Know what you're going to do in certain situations. Already have a plan. Already have a name for it. It was interesting. The year we beat Barbers Hill in the by district, we play them in overtime. We have the ball. We're up. All we need to do is get it in and drain the clock. Uh, Coach from Barbers Hill calls timeout. They come over and they go, "Kid, coach, we're running apple, right? We're running apple." So kids already knew. And so I would say every coach needs end of game situations, have gone over them, have practiced them, and so kids are prepared. And the third thing I'd say that every coach needs is a supportive family, but be a supportive spouse, whether you're male or female or whatever that is. You have to also understand that what you do is also a drain on them. They see, the stress that it's put on you. They hear people in the stands. So you need a supportive family and you need to be their support in those situations as
Man,
well.
coach, that is so very, very true. That's excellent for three in the key. All right. Next up, we got two shots. Two of the most foul things you've experienced as a coach, because it's not all warm and fuzzy. So, two shots. Two of the most foul things you've experienced as a coach.
Well, two things pretty much when I read that immediately came to mind, and I'll try to leave out where and all that stuff. But you go in situations, times in some instances when you play in a certain place, you know uh, what kind of officiating you're going to get, what kind of atmosphere you're going to be in, and so one of the foulest things for me was we had beat this team at our place, and we come in. I'm excited, if we can win this game, we're going to have sole possession of first place in district. It looks like we'll be able to win it out. And I'm excited, ready for the game. And I'm standing there, and I have an administrator tell me that blank isn't going to happen
Oh,
here.
wow.
And so, and I've played in that, that spot before, and I know how it can be. And so it's kind of that helpless feeling that you get in the pit of your stomach of, there's no way we're going to win this game because between, and I hate to say this, the officiating and the atmosphere and where you're at, uh, there's no hope for your kids, no matter what you do. In that game, we ended up losing in overtime. Um, so we made a game of it,
Yeah.
but that would be the first one that came to my mind. The second one that came to my mind, it impacted me to start with, but it ended up impacting 9 other coaches. I was in a situation where I had an administrator's kid on my team. She wasn't a starter. We ended up making her a starter. Um, she was taken back out of the starting role because of the kid that was injured came back. And when I took her out of the starting role, the administrator decided that I wasn't going to be employed there the next year. And so, anyway, long story short, I ended up finishing the school year, did what I was supposed to do, but because of how I was treated, 9 other coaches decided to leave that district. And so, to me, that it happened to me, but I hated how it impacted those families because they made a decision, to support me, which I appreciated, but it turned their lives upside down. And so I hated that for them and for their
Okay.
families.
Yeah, that's it's not all warm and fuzzy. Thanks for sharing those, Coach. All right, we're down to the last thing in this episode, Coach. And one thing. It can be
Mhm.
anything, Coach, that you would like to share before we exit.
Um, you know, Obviously we talked
Hmm.
about faith already, and the importance of that to me. I tell kids all the time, I don't know how you get through this life without something that sustains you. And I obviously, my faith is important. Jesus Christ is important in my life, gives me purpose. But one of the things would share on adding to that is, you may not see the results of your work. We may not ever see the results. Yeah, you're going to have a few kids that come back and say, hey, I appreciate you, coach. You're going to get invited to weddings. um, I had an experience 3 weeks ago, one that you never think as a coach you're going to have to go through. I had one of my former players that passed away, and I went to her funeral. And so I would say this one thing is, know that as a coach, you're not necessarily going to see those results, um, but you are making a difference, and don't, even through those times where you're most frustrated and overwhelmed, realize that there are little eyes watching you, and you will make an impact in their lives eventually.
Coach, that is good. Coach Trotter, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. This is the Coaches Co op. This is a place where coaches can come and get what you need. So, hopefully, Coach, you will help today. Listen, I'm your host, Coach P. I'm excited about highlighting good coaches. And today we highlighted a great coach in Coach Michelle Trotter. Coach, once again, thank you so much for your time. Signing off, I'm Coach P. This is Coach Trotter. Remember, coaches do what most people can't because we're not average.
Thank you for your time.